Welcome to another episode of Skeptic's Corner. We're here with your Skeptic Team investigators. I'm your host, D'Angelo Williams. Taylor, you may remember him from Bobby Mackey's. He also did Waverly. Maeve, you might remember her at the Euro Shrine. Then we got that ever so skeptic Gary Barnett. Yeah. So you guys had opportunity, we've experienced Bobby Mackey. You've had opportunity to watch the films. Have you had a chance to think back and say, oh, I wish I could have did this different? Or how do you feel? How has that changed you? How has it touched you?
Look, I love Bobby Mackey's episode. I love being there. My favorite place to be at all times.
I'm sorry, I can't do it anymore. I gotta go to the main room.
No, look, it was fun. It was a great experience. Obviously, day 2 is tough for me to watch because you see me being scared.
All right, I'm out. I'm out, bro. I don't know what voice that was, but it scared the shit out of me, bro.
And I was, right? But I got redemption on episode 3, 4, 5, okay? I got a character arc. No. It was good to see it because I really was terrified. Day 1, day 2, I felt like there was something there. I really felt the energy of that place, really kind of overtake me. And I don't know if I'm susceptible to energy, but I felt it there.
I felt so much energy going through my body at once. It was like 30 people were trying to talk to me.
And I've been to other locations and I felt different kinds of energies there, but that one was just dark and heavy, and it was just tough being there.
So Maeve, him talking about energy, with your experience with the paranormal, tell us about energies and why Taylor felt kind of the way he felt.
Once you get a taste of just any kind of negative energy, it's gonna rattle you. Like he was saying, susceptible to, once he started feeling it, he probably couldn't turn it off. And everything was going to come at him. I think that the energy and the personal experience is almost a little bit more than the evidence that you get and stuff like that. I feel personally, I like the personal experience, whether it's good, whether it's bad, because the energy that you feel is a little bit more real to you, but it's not actual evidence. But once you open yourself up to it, then it can overtake you. So I kind of feel like that's what happened with you a little bit. Once you started opening up, you just couldn't stop.
So I'm gonna ask, because I have to, and I'm gonna go to Gary on this. What kind of energy did you think it was, Gary?
I think he had a ton of fear energy.
Ooh. Oh, that nervous energy, baby.
All fear-based, I think, because I think he truly dove really too much into the history of the location, and the guide spooked him a little bit with some of the stories.
If there's any place that can be haunted, this place would be.
And I think that played into his psyche before he even went into the place by himself. So I truly think that was already in his subconscious. So he's already got that, and he's pulling it out because he may hear a sound now. But as a skeptic, I don't attribute every sound to paranormal. But when you dive in that much and you are feeling a certain type of way, anything that happens, you're going to think is paranormal. And I think that's where a lot of it is psychological in your brain playing tricks on you, because people are scared. We showed, it was dark, right? Was it not dark, Taylor? It was super dark in these locations. Well, that's the thing, is every one of these it's hard to show you. We can show you the best we can, but it's a night vision camera, so that's what you're seeing. But we don't see anything if our light's not on. We can see through the camera, but that's it. Other than that, there's no light. So most people are scared of the dark by themselves. So I think that truly plays a part of it. And then you tie in, if you truly believe in paranormal, and then on top of it, even knowing more of the history, that really plays up that psyche in your mind.
Hold on. I just need to catch my breath.
What?
How the do I get out of here? Hold on, bro.
Oh, he's scared. He's scared.
And I think a lot of it's fear-based. Did I feel any energy when I was there? I felt zero. I can understand where fear comes from in people on certain things, because there was a whole situation when I'm in there and the camera's right on me. So like I have the light on my face, so I can see what I'm recording or whatever. And as you look around, your eyes see things all over the place. But again, that light plays tricks with your eyes. So I can understand when somebody's in here by themselves, that light looking at you definitely plays tricks with you. And that's the thing, like, I love that May brought up, like, it's an energy feel for them, and like, if they feel energy, then that's better experience than evidence. But like, I don't ever get that energy feel. It always feels dead to me, and there's nothing going on, for lack of a better word. There's nothing going on to me, so like, I don't feel it.
I tried.
So I don't feel anything. So I have to have some kind of evidence. Otherwise, that's not going to make me be a believer.
Speaking of evidence, Maeve, I've been thinking about this, and I'd love to hear yours. There's a lot of things out there that you can use to investigate things. There's apps if you're Taylor, there's a REM pod, there's a music box, there's teddy bears. What do you think is your favorite method, or what method do you rely on more going into investigations if you were trying to prove to somebody that the paranormal exists?
Well, I honestly don't think, like, if somebody doesn't believe in the paranormal, I can't prove to them. But my favorite is the Estes method. That's my go-to, just because I like it, especially if we're not in the same room. And if you can have an intelligent conversation that way, to me, you can't really deny that. I mean, there's not many ways you can debunk it if you're having a full-on conversation. Granted, I haven't had that happen too much, have had it happen, but to me, that would be my favorite method.
I asked because the REM pod went off. It was crazy. And I want to know what you thought about this. The REM pod was going crazy. The music box was going crazy.
I do think it's pretty crazy that the music box is still playing.
After seeing those two things, what do you think about those two methods proving that the paranormal exists?
I don't with the REM pod, not with what I saw. The heat, or not the heat, but the temperature gauge that was going off can go off. I mean, it just takes a little bit. Now, if the colors were going off, and that was one thing that I like to do when I'm investigating, is when the colors go off, say what color it is.
Okay.
You know, what side is
Yeah.
going off. But when that temperature gauge is just squealing, that could be anything. I mean, a little bit of a breeze. So me and the REM pod have a love-hate relationship. But once again, once the colors start going off, and if you can ask, hey, can you light up the blue one? And the blue one lights up, then, I mean, you can't really debunk that. I mean, you can, somebody. But I haven't had a lot of time with the music box, though, so I'm still kind of iffy.
I like to think, Taylor, that we all use, I think, the first method in investigating anything, and that's hearing. We all heard what sounds like a body being drugged through this place.
It literally sounds like someone's dragging a sack of shit on the ground.
You hear?
Who's dragging that?
What made you think it was a body being drugged versus air conditioning unit going off or something like that?
I don't know if I said body first. I think I said sack of shit. I don't really remember the entire thing. It was an out-of-body experience, but I do remember that it sounded like it was right next to me, and it sounded actually it was like coming like straight and maybe slightly to the left, and it kind of like, I don't know if it moved, but it got softer and then louder again. And I just remember the combination of everything going off, that it was just like, of course this is happening. Like, why isn't it? Of course. Why isn't something be dragged across the floor? Like, it's really cool. At the same time, very scary. But to me, still to this day, Gary thinks he can disprove it, but I still think, it was great evidence. In conjunction to kind of what she said, all the devices were going off the whole investigation.
Yes.
REM pod, we've done 5.
Yes.
REM pod hasn't gone crazy like that ever. The music box hasn't gone that crazy. It's gone crazy. REM pod actually has gone a couple of other episodes. It's gone off, but that one was just chaos. Plus, my apps were going off. To me, it was just almost overwhelming what was going on. I disagree with what she said about the REM pod. Obviously, there are ways to disprove it. Temperature going up and down, fine. But the way it was reacting to our responses, especially on day 2, when we were asking, like, is that you? Beep. Is that you? To me, it was pretty wild. But I do agree that the REM pod is the most finicky device, and you really have to like make sure everything you're doing is controlled.
Gary, I have to ask you this. Obviously, in investigations, you have to have, obviously, your natural sense of investigating. Sounds to me like it was a body being drugged. I saw the REM pod going off. I also heard the music box going off, and I also heard words. So I want you to put your best investigative hat on as the skeptic that you are, and you tell me how I didn't hear a body being drugged. The REM pod didn't go off and answer questions that I thought it was answering, and how the music box that went off for 15 minutes straight just decided to just go off for 15 minutes straight.
Okay, so I was ready for this one, so I'm always prepared. So I'll start with the REM pod. The REM pod, there's been a lot of other skeptics out there that have done studies with the REM pod, and they have proven a cell phone can set the REM pod off. And Taylor loves apps. Well, if you notice, every time he was using the apps and using his phone, the REM pod would go off. So even when we were doing the Estes method, he had his phone out and he was reading the answers that came across there, and he's only one room next to it. It could still affect the REM pod. I'm not saying it did, but I'm saying there is an explanation why it could be done. Because if you look, almost every time the REM pod went off, he was using his phone. So that would be how I would try to disprove the apps not the apps, but the phone setting off the REM pod. And like you said, the temperature fluctuation, there was drafts all over that place. You know, there was holes in the wall, in the basement. There's holes where we literally saw a possum come in when we first got there, or a wall, whatever it was, something. So like there is drafts, like, so that could be set up the temperature gauge, all that kind of, like she said. I think the more true is the colors lighting up, which is what I kept mentioning. I'm like, yeah, we're not getting colors. We're only getting that middle. To me, that is less likely to be evidence than the colors lighting up around. That to me is more true than the middle. Now, if you want to get to the sack of potatoes, is what he actually meant to say. So I went through the footage, the raw footage, and the ice maker machine, which was in the first room we sat in the group on day 1, it makes exact same noise when it's on and off. When it's turning on and off and it's building ice, it makes that same noise. Now, I can find that. We can show that in the raw files. You can see that when that gets released. You'll see and you'll hear that exact same noise coming from that room. It'll be a lot louder because the camera's right next to it, but you will hear it. And if you look, when he's out there, he's literally looking and he's trying to see, and he thinks it's coming from that exact room, which was the office. So that would be how I would explain that noise. Now, if you heard it right next to him, I can't explain that, but it's the same noise that ice maker makes. So that would be how I would explain that away. And then the music box. So obviously the music box happened to me. And my biggest thing was we need to recreate that with Taylor. Like you said, Taylor went rogue and you didn't get a chance to recreate it. So, but I think like that for me was, I didn't know how to explain. Like I picked it up, turned it around, it would stop and go off again. The only thing I could think, which looking back, seeing some of the angles and stuff, that thing has a 15-foot range. I could have been really close to the doors when I was outside, and that's why it went off. I could have been within that 15 feet, which set it off. If I would have gotten in the middle of the road, completely away, then I might have been able to truly debunk something like that. But that would be how I would try to debunk that, would be even when I turned around, maybe I was getting the chairs. Because obviously in that moment, I'm excited about what's going on. I'm trying to figure this out. So my hand could be doing this. I could be getting the chairs that are around me. I could be close to the wall that's over there. That's within, because it's a 15-foot radius. So now facing the bull room, I can't explain that away, because the bull room, there's nothing there. It's a wall. It's a doorway. So there's no door. The way I tried to debunk it in the moment was the floor is a little warped, and it could have been hitting that, but it didn't hit it at the start. So I couldn't explain it away why it started later. My biggest thing was I wanted to just see it recreated by somebody else. And then I wanted to try and recreate it the next day. The next day, we put it on a chair in the same exact spot, facing the same way, and it never went off one time the whole night when it was off the ground.
So we'll go back to Maeve. Maeve, as someone that got a chance to watch the episode, what questions would you have for these guys, or for myself, or for anybody out there, or if you can answer some of those questions as a viewer to kind of help the people that watch us do these things understand what it is we're doing?
I think the one thing that stood out to me the most was I really like it when you guys do the whiteboard.
What we're going to do is we're going to take a whiteboard and we're going to write down what we think we hear versus telling you what we think we hear, so we don't influence you in any way possible.
I love that. I think that you had everybody show what they wrote, but nobody ever really talked about it. And I personally, because you guys had some stuff that was the same, and like all three of you had something at the end about favorite part or something like that. So I, as a viewer, personally would just like to have had you guys maybe talk about that, explain, maybe relate it to something that had happened, because that just kind of left an opening right there, and I just kind of felt like that was unresolved. So in that part right there, I think. But I do really like the whiteboard.
For anybody that watches any other paranormal shows or anything like that, every time somebody does a spirit box session or something, they put the word they heard on the screen at the same time. And as a skeptic, I despise that, because you're literally influencing the viewer at what they're going to hear. So when they replay it, you're automatically listening for that word because it's already been ingrained in your head. And that's a trick they use on people to make them think they actually got evidence. And that bothers me to no end, because you're not truly going to prove to anybody that this is real. It looks more faked when you do that, which is why we do the whiteboard, because I don't want to know what they think they hear until after we see everything and write it all down, because that is if we all get the same answers and we all hear the same thing, that's indisputable proof I can't debunk. But if you're putting something on the screen and it tells me this is what it is and you replay it, I'm obviously listening for that word. And it makes it easier for you to get evidence, which I despise. And that's why we created the whiteboard experiment for us, because I think that is a huge thing for people to understand. Is we don't want to give you any false impressions on what's going on. We want you to make your own interpretation of what's going on and get your own understanding and listen for what you think you hear, because you may hear something completely different, and we don't want to sway that.
Wow.
You got responses? You said some other stuff?
Responses for earlier. Look, I just want to talk about this because he's had his skeptic point of view, and I just want to counter it. So we talked about the spirit box, how we didn't recreate it. I recreated it. I did the exact same thing Gary did. I set it off, set it at the exact same spot. It didn't go off. Now you could say, does that mean that it doesn't work? No, it means that someone was there with him and not with me, or it moved from a different spot, because it went off 15 minutes straight. But for me, nothing until I left, until I very left. And then the REM pod, you could say there might be drafts in that place, but we'd done Waverly. That place had no windows. So if anybody anywhere had a draft, Waverly would have had a draft, and it would have been going off the whole time. So when you watch back, if you're watching, look and listen to when the REM pod goes off. It's almost always right after somebody says something. It's usually not in the middle of a sentence. It's right at the end, and it's just always like that. So to me, those two, I know what he's saying, but to me, that's pretty solid proof of this place having it. The whiteboard method I really like too. We do it in most locations. I think it's one of our better ideas, and it really shows groupthink and what we're all individually hearing, and it's good proof so that you can see okay, we're not all experiencing the exact same thing mentally, but we all wrote down similar things.
We could tell that you were, how can I say, visibly pissed off. It could have been the location, it could have been Gary, it could have been a lot of things. I'm asking you, have you solved what happened? Just what happened?
Yeah, so I know we talked about energy earlier and what he thought it might have been. It's fear. You're right. It's fear. I had fear, and it probably compounded on itself. But I will say that place, out of all locations, had a different energy. And I've been to the other ones. We've done other ones, and I didn't feel the same way. I wasn't as scared. Waverly, I did the first solo. I was in there the longest. There was something about that place that really, really felt dark and evil. Like, it just felt bad. Like, it was just draining to be in there. And I don't know if that's why I was mad. I was probably mad because I was just scared, and I didn't want to be scared on camera. That's the truth. It's embarrassing, right? You don't want to be like this guy who's like the scared guy, especially when you got Liv, this like cute little dainty girl, and she's like, I can do it. And then you're like, I can't do it. So it's tough, man. It's tough. It's tough. But yes, I was mad. I was mad because the group was ganging up on me during the confrontation. And I get it. You had every right to be.
Feeling angry. Since we did our investigation with Gary, I've just been feeling angry and aggro.
He has that effect on people.
He has that effect on people. That's not Bobby Mackey.
I've been feeling angry since yesterday, bro. Ask my wife. I've been feeling angry. I've just been so agitated and on edge. I'm just mad I'm in here. It's too much.
I was refusing to go in. I signed up for the job, so I got to do it. Fair enough. But I learned a lot from it, and I think it was a good opportunity for me to grow, because you grow in failure. And since then, I've made it a point to just stick through it. What's the worst that could happen? You know, a ghost attaches to you and you become possessed for the rest of your life? Maybe. No. The worst that could happen is maybe you get touched or something freaks you out. It's jump scares, right? The worst thing that happens is a jump scare. Other people might say worse. I don't know. Blair Witch Project, you know, that could happen too. But yeah, so I've grown from it, and I think I've become a better person from it, honestly.
Can I give how I feel?
Yes.
All right. So, what's worse that could happen? You could get scratched, you could get grabbed, you could get pushed. There's a bunch of things, and I've asked for those to happen to all of us. So, hope it happens one of these times, and you're welcome if it does. But I think D made a good point during the confrontation, and he was talking about what are you scared of? Like, why do you can't go in by yourself? What's wrong if you run out? I think that was a huge point he made. He's like, okay, if you go in and you run out a minute later, that's fine. At least you went in and did it. And I think that is a kudos to you that you were willing to do that, because in the moment, we didn't really know if you were going to do it. And that's why we were all over you, because we were going to hammer you about it. But like, that is because, yes, we understand it. I understand it's scary. I understand it's scary to go to these places by yourself. I do. I understand y'all get terrified because you truly believe. And I'm trying to get to that level. Haven't got there yet. But I understand, and that's why I'm appreciative that you were able to do it. But I think his point of, and I think that helped probably for you, why is it bad if you run out? And I think you thinking that, okay, well, I can run out. You don't have to we're not locking you in. We're not chaining you. Maybe in the future we might, but right now we're not. So I think you overcame it. I think you've done a good job. And I didn't have feelings then negative towards you. I was just, what are we doing? Yeah. You wanted to do this, and I was so confused in the moment that you were so scared because you were so adamant. But I think a lot of it is you did a lot of history of the location, and I think that really played with your psyche on it. And I think that, like you said, fear, all that stuff compounded. And then if you did have energies happen, it all makes sense.
So Maeve, just real quick, because obviously, you know, we have a confrontation title in in our breakdown, right? Yeah. So is there anything that you want to tell us that will lead you to demonstrate the same things that Taylor demonstrated in this episode?
Oh, I will definitely freak out at some point. Again, like he was saying, fear. I can scare myself faster than anyone else can. But again, like, I want to point out too, though, that he was saying it was like the darkest energy that he's felt, that you felt. And that can compound, like, everybody's heightened at that moment. Like, your energy is up, which is probably rubbing off on you a little bit. He never helps the situation. Yeah. So I kind of feel like, I don't want to say that the place negatively affected you, but I definitely feel like it played a part in the entire experience. And yeah, and I can't say that I will never not snap your head off. Like, it may happen.
So I want to make sure that I make this promise to you guys out there. My promise to you guys out there is to eventually, through all the investigations we do, have Taylor run out, have Maeve run out, and also have Gary run out. And we will know that the paranormal does exist. And that's why we're going to continue with Skeptic and Skeptic's Corner. Again, thank you for joining us on this episode of Skeptic's Corner. Taylor, Maeve, Gary, looking forward to the next investigation. Where we going?